Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Base, the podcast where we sit down with all the best minds in the fitness industry, athletes, coaches, and everyone who wants to push the minds of what the human body and minds can beat. Today, I'm very excited to have my friend Gabe, who we know whose journey embodies discipline, resilience, and the power of adaptability. He's a former runner from the US, a multiple-time Spartan regional champion, and also just recently become one of the top athletes in Hyrox. Gabe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it, Ben.
This is how many times have you been in Singapore?
So I used to live here, and this is now maybe like my fourth or fifth time coming back. I came here for the first Hyrox event about 2.5 years ago, and did the Singapore Expo last year, and then this past weekend was amazing. Yeah, very overwhelming, very fun.
Have you got enough rest?
So nope, I'm just running off adrenaline and caffeine right now.
Before we dive deep into your story, we gotta go to the most recent race experience, the doubles pros with your partner Hong Byung-suk.
Yep.
So how was your race with Hong? Shall we see, the beast of Thailand meet the beast of Korea?
It was so fun. It was very overwhelming. Like I said, he's got a huge fan club, so just running around that, having so many people cheer for us was like an experience I'll never forget. And I think our time was actually pretty good. We hadn't practiced at all together. There's obviously a bit of language barrier as well that we had to overcome. And these races, especially doubles, rely on, communication between people. So I think all things considered, we actually did a pretty good job. So I was happy with it.
And you guys got like 53.
Yeah, 53:41.
Were you happy when it runs out?
Yeah, I was happy. I think, like I said, I think we could go faster if we just worked together a little bit more effectively. I had a bit of an injury. He wasn't feeling 100%, he said. So I think neither of us had our best day either. And that's sometimes it's just like that. You show up and you have to do the best with the conditions on that day. But I think peak potential is still a couple minutes faster for us.
Sure. We're gonna go through a little bit about your journey. I would like to learn more about that. So you came from a running background, but you mentioned that you dealt quick with a lot of injuries throughout the years.
Yep.
So how does that change the way you approach training over the years?
Yeah. So I grew up like running cross country, track and field back in the US. I went to Cornell University, ran cross country, track and field there. And I ended up having to kind of drop out my senior year just due to a lot of issues, but a lot of injuries, like you said. And I think it's just taught me that the most important thing is consistency and not overdoing it. I think, sports athletics attracts a lot of type A, high achieving people. And that sometimes means you push your body too far. And so I think that's been the big learning lesson as I've kind of restarted my whole fitness journey, into my late 20s, early 30s, is just how important it is to be consistent, but just always listen to your body. It's always better to take that extra rest day if you need it. You don't always have to stick to the exact program. You got to make tweaks with things just because you want to stay healthy, right? So if you overdo it, you get injuries, and then it creates a very vicious cycle. So I think that's the main learning lesson.
So before you pick up Hyrox, you also did Spartan.
Yep.
So how did you pick that up?
That was very random. I signed up. Yeah, so I kind of quit sports and working out for a number of years. I didn't really do anything for like 5 or 6 years. And then
What happened, babe?
just burnout, injuries. So in my early 20s, like we said, I stopped running completely and just wanted to kind of get away from sports altogether. So when I lived and worked in Singapore, actually, I didn't really work out or train much at all. I wasn't running at all. And it wasn't until I moved to Thailand that I just kind of randomly signed up for a Spartan race because it looked fun, and ended up doing pretty well there, and was like, hey, this kind of like ignited this fire in me that, hey, I actually like am a very competitive person. I want to go try it again. So that's how I started again. Yeah.
This is crazy. Like you didn't train at all. This one weekend that came out.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I didn't do that well. It was like an open, there's different categories. So I signed up for the open, which is like the non-competitive one. But I think I placed second overall in that one. And Swede was like, yeah, if I just start to train properly again, I know I still have talent. I know I'm very competitive, so I could get back to a higher level. So it just kind of took me on this journey of like more just curiosity, like, not being attached to some end goal, but more just like, hey, I'm still young, I'm still at that time I was like 27. So I'm still relatively young. I can push my body and let's see how far I can go. So that was kind of the main goal. And then in the last couple of years, it's transitioned from Hyrox, OCR, more into OCR more into Hyrox. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned just now about you getting burnt out from exercising and working out. I'm gonna get back to that a little bit because
Sure.
usually when we talk about like being an athlete, you gotta have to be really consistent. Like really like grinding the shoes.
Yeah.
But that sounds like we got that the challenge, yeah, and turning that corner. But I'm gonna get back to that in reserve. I want to ask you like, what got you into like Hyrox, and when do you realize this is your sport?
Yeah. So this goes back to, I think it was right around when the pandemic was happening, COVID, and it's like 5 years ago. And I had a few friends that I met through Spartan race, a couple German guys who told me about this sport called Hyrox, and I didn't really think much of it, but I started training with one guy in particular who was kind of taking me through a few of the different workouts, and it was just kind of a fun challenge. I'd never like pushed and pulled sleds or done wall balls or any of this stuff. And then I saw there was a race coming up. This is fast forward a couple years in Hong Kong. This is 2023. And I just decided to sign up and go for it. And I didn't know actually that it was the last chance qualifier for Worlds. So I just went there thinking it was a normal race. It ended up being a really high pressure race. There were guys flying in from Australia, from Europe. And first race ever, I ended up crossing the finish line first. So I won the race. I qualified for Worlds for the Elite 15 for about 2 hours. And then after the podium, they came up and told me that I actually had gotten a minute penalty because I'd gone out the wrong gate. There's the in and out arch right next to each other in this race. And I went out the in arch. So that gave me a 1 minute penalty. It bumped me back, took me out of the Elite 15. So I was like so devastated. Like I just broke down. I was crying. And it was like, it went from like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. But then that was just like the ultimate fuel of like, I need my revenge, like I can't believe that this happened and I'm so devastated, but like, instead of just being sad, I'm going to use it as like fuel to just, supercharge my training and kind of switch the focus all into Hyrox.
Yeah, and you are quite tall. So like, how do you use your height as an advantage in hierarchy station?
Yeah, this is always like a conversation you see online about, what's like the peak physique and body types. And I'll definitely say, it's an advantage being taller for Hyrox. I think particularly with the ergs, with ski erg and rowing, that helps to have a little bit longer limbs and everything. More body weight to push the sleds as well.
Yeah.
It's always a fine balance with the running is, because you don't want to be too heavy. You want to run fast as well. So, for me, I guess I just try to optimize training as best as I can, knowing what my strengths and weaknesses are. But overall, I think it is an advantage to be a little bit taller for sure. Yeah.
So which station is your secretly most favorite station?
I mean, yeah, I like the ski erg in the beginning. I like the rower. And actually I do like wall balls at the end. I've kind of used that as like my superpower in some ways in some races. So that's a good one for me as well.
So which one was the hardest Hyrox that you ever did?
Hardest one. There's been a lot of them. So I think actually the first Singapore race in National Stadium, this was the end of 2023, that was really challenging just because it was so humid outside. And I just remember getting to the end of that race and like doing wall balls, and there was so much sweat pouring down from the ball. I couldn't even like see the target. I was just like throwing it blindly, like just hoping it was hitting it every time. And the times from that race were all very slow as well. So I think it was just a very slow course overall. So that was a really challenging one. Yeah, I had definitely some disappointments. The first Elite 15 major I qualified for. I had a bit of an injury going into it. I think I finished 10th overall, but was just like not a good race for many reasons. So yeah, it's highs and lows with these things.
So looking back as your evolution, what's the one change that you make to you find that when you make that change to your training routine that it got the biggest impact?
There's been a number of things. So I think as I've, gotten into my 30s, I'm 33 now. So I don't want to say I'm at the twilight of my career, but obviously, we all have a start and end date, and I'm hoping that I can continue. But I think as what I've noticed, the last couple of years, it's like you kind of have to incorporate recovery into the training a little bit more intentionally. So I'm a very big fan of, different recovery modalities. Like in Bangkok, I'm part of a sort of it's like an onsen. So there's like a, cold plunge, it's sauna. I try to get like massage almost weekly. I have a physio that I work with. And this is all stuff that I just kind of took for granted or ignored in my younger years.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really important part of training and just being like very intentional with that.
Yeah.
And then outside of that, I think it's just being more careful with like the run volume. So I used to run a lot, especially when I did more Spartan races. That was like my main form of endurance training. And now I've kind of taken a little bit less pressure off my body, doing more work on like the skier, the rower, biking, some more cross training as well has really helped.
Got it. And if you have like very close back-to-back races, what's your approach in between the races?
Yeah, so I think, the minute that if you're going to go into a weekend like I did this weekend, the minute that you finish that first day or that first race, like you already got to start thinking about the second one. So like be smart with recovery, get food in your body as soon as you can. Make sure you're warming down, doing a bit of stretching. Definitely don't go out and party or drink, like be smart about it. And yeah, just like do everything you can to get your legs ready. I think a longer warm up the next day really helps for me as well. So yeah, you just got to take it seriously. Like I view it as sort of like a work assignment. Like you got to see it all the way through from the first race till you cross the finish line in the last race, and everything in between. You got to be serious about it because you want to do the best you can. If you're doing a relay, you can't let your teammates down. So there's a lot of pressure as well.
So now you are based in Thailand.
Yep.
You're running a OCR Thailand.
Yeah, we're in the Thailand OCR. Yep.
Just a bit more about that. It's you guys group.
Yeah, that's a fun company I've had with one of my friends, Alex. So we started that back right around COVID time, perfect time this time during the pandemic. And, it's very organic. It's just like coaching people in the park because especially with obstacle course racing, you don't need a lot of equipment. Actually, it's mainly just running and hanging from monkey bars and more body weight strength. So that's something that we grew and it's kind of created a little community out of, and that's just evolved over the last couple of years. So we still do that weekly actually and have a really good group of people. Some of them do Hyrox now, but a lot of them are kind of stick with more of the obstacle running, road running, trail racing, that kind of stuff.
And you also had your coaching business, Training. What type of clients do you work with?
Yeah, so with Heck Hybrid Fitness, it's primarily online coaching. So I work with actually quite a number of Singaporeans who've reached out to me. I got people in the U.S., Europe, Australia, Malaysia, kind of all over the world. So it's mainly people I would say who are delving into Hyrox and want a coach to kind of guide them, keep them accountable. So that's the main the main clientele base. Some of them are just training for other sports, triathlon, trail running, road racing, but I'd say now probably 70% are into the Hyrox scene. So, it's some of them are beginners. Some of them are trying to like break 60, they have a pretty ambitious goal. So it's sort of a wide array of different athletes, but I think like the philosophy and the approach doesn't change a whole lot. It's still the fundamentals. It's just tweaking it to the individual based on what their background is. Because I think, many coaches would say, the number one thing is you don't want people to get injured, right? So when you've gone through that experience yourself, you want to keep people healthy, keep them consistent. And it's always better to be a tiny bit underprepared or like feel like you haven't done quite enough and show up to the start line healthy than feel like you've ticked every box, but then, all of a sudden you're injured or you're burned out and you can't even make it to the race. And I think that's a devastating feeling. So I want people I work with to stay healthy. And even if it means, like I said earlier in this conversation, switching sessions, maybe you got to take a couple extra rest days. That's always better.
So when it comes to you, like, do they have a structured program or how does it work? Like, what would be your approach when working in a new client? Like, what would you do?
Yeah. So it goes back to kind of, again, what their background is, what they've been doing beforehand. So generally, you could say there's people who come more from like the strength and conditioning background, where maybe they're bodybuilders, CrossFitters, maybe they've done like F45 or sort of boot camp classes. So there's sort of that type of individual. And then there's people more on the opposite end of the spectrum. So more endurance athletes like myself, they're more runners, triathletes, cyclists who come into this sport. So I think it's kind of identifying what their current strengths or weaknesses are. And then, Hyrox exposes your weaknesses. So you have to be a well-rounded athlete. And I think I'm very conscious of bringing up whatever someone's weaknesses are, trying to like make that a big priority in the programming. So if someone clearly is lacking strength, we'll make that a big focus. If they're lacking endurance training, that'll be a big focus. And then it's just creating like a holistic, well-rounded program for them.
What's the one small coaching adjustment that you made, let's say, to your client that make a massive impact on their coach?
There's been a few, I guess, like a couple examples. Probably, I'm a bit biased because I'm a runner, so I want people to get out and run. Yeah. And I also understand that running there's a high risk of injury sometimes. So I think with that, especially people more in the camp of like CrossFit, CrossFit or more the bodybuilding type of athlete, I don't always just ship them to running right away. So like we slowly integrate that in. I'm a little bit more cautious with that. And like I said earlier, even with myself, I'm making more use of like skiing, rowing, biking, more of the cross training, because I think that still really builds up the aerobic base. You're really conditioning someone well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not running specific, but at least it allows your body to like absorb that kind of fitness. And again, like if you can build up that kind of stamina and stay healthy running, it's still a good balance. It'll still really help people.
Got it. What about the step push and step pull? Like how do you approach is very specific movement of Hyrox?
Yeah, these are always like, if you look up Hyrox on Instagram, that's always what people focus on the most.
Yeah, like
I want to go straight to the sled push.
Yeah.
Let me just push a slam as much as I can. And like, yes, that is very important. I guess I always have the conversation with people is like, that is just, that's one station, right? So if you break it up, it's basically one run, one station, so it's like a sled push is 1/16 of the whole race, right? A sled pull is 1/16 of the whole race. So it is a component. I would say sometimes it's maybe a little bit too overhyped, right?
Yeah.
You definitely have to have the strength to do it, though. I mean, there's some people who come in and they can't even push the thing, and then we got to really work on the strength and conditioning for that. It's always a balance of, is it specificity? So do you just get them to push a sled first, or do you take them back? Maybe you have them do more barbell, dumbbell exercises. I think that's really dependent on the individual. I'll say for the sled pull in particular, that's a very technique-driven movement. So I actually do, for myself and for people I work with, like we program that in a little bit more frequently, just because I think that requires you to practice it a little bit more as well. It's, like I said, it's just getting used to the rope management, pulling, walking it back. That takes a little bit more practice for people.
And when an athlete hits a plateau, it's slowing down and not making progress, like what we just studied wrong to your client, what's his athlete?
Push harder. No, I'm just kidding. It's usually the opposite. So like generally, I mean, this could happen for a number of reasons, right? I always say like stress is stress, right? If it's stress from training, stress from a relationship, stress from work, your body absorbs it all the same. So I think a lot of people are very stressed out, right? In society, at work. And so if you're just adding on this stimulus of more and more training, that can really wreak havoc on your hormones, your whole system, right? So sometimes it just requires them to just take a few days off completely, right? Well, let's kind of restart, take a deload, take a down week, and we'll kind of get back to more of the intensity the following week.
Yeah.
Other people, it might be more of a mental thing too. So there are some times where I kind of have to push back on people. They say, hey, I'm feeling tired, burned out. We review the training. And I just kind of say to them, look, like you're not going to feel 100% every day. Maybe you just kind of have to get through this little period and get the body to absorb a bit more of this training and feel what it's like. So again, it really kind of depends on the person and like what the actual training they've been doing is before.
So I'm going to get back to the previous probably to talk about you getting burned out. I still acted.
Yeah.
Like how it was able to become that.
Oh man. I mean, yeah. So I did have to I had to step away completely. Right. So when I was in my early 20s, it was just the program I was in for college running was very high volume running. So I went from maybe running like 60, 70K a week all the way up to like 120, 140K. It was a big jump in volume for me. And my body just couldn't handle it. Like I just had a lot of injuries, and it seemed like every time I was getting in great shape, and I ran a few sub 15 minute 5Ks. So I feel like I was getting there, but then all of a sudden another injury would happen. And I just created, like I said, a very vicious mental cycle that I just had to say, hey, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to take time off completely. Like let my body, let my mind just kind of get away from this. And I've just needed like a full reset, It's like completely turning off the MacBook, just like letting it cool down for a little while and then coming back to it after. So that's what I had to do. I'm not saying that's what everyone has to do, of course, but it's just being honest with yourself too. Like burnout is a real thing. And I think a big issue with like the whole Hyrox community is sometimes it is a little bit, it's egging you on to push too much because you log on to Instagram and you see everyone's doing some sort of weekly workout, some sort of like crazy, AMRAP of wall balls and sled push and running. And it makes you feel like you can't keep up and you got to always be doing this stuff. And I just encourage people to like, step away from it. Just trust your own training. Like you don't need to be doing the latest, greatest workout, A lot of the best people are doing very boring, standard stuff. And like I said, they're listening to their body. They're being consistent.
I can imagine your Instagram is all the talk, actually.
Oh, like, yeah. Some people don't follow, man. It's just too much, yeah.
The elite 50.
Or they see like the most ridiculous stuff. And it's just, again, like it makes you feel like, am I doing enough? You're always questioning, like, should I be doing more? Should I be, doing this and this or this? And like, you get a lot of guys, girls who are just like program hopping from one person to the next, trying to find like the secret workout or the cheat code. And it doesn't exist,
So how do you wind down? But I said, actually, like, how do you take care of yourself?
I mean, I like to be around people and just step away from the sport completely. So like some of my friends and like people I hang out with, we just don't even talk about IROPS. We don't, we don't like that doesn't exist for a couple hours. And for me, that's great because it just takes my mind off it. It reminds me like, this is a huge passion of mine. It's a huge part of who I am, but it's also just a sport and it's not my life. It doesn't define who I am as a person. And so I just like to, just like be a normal guy and go out, just like get some food, hang out with people. Yeah, just talking about my best. Yeah, I do. I definitely like, that is something I've had a bit of an issue with in the past. So I'm careful with myself about alcohol, but I do enjoy it. So like, a couple times a year, I'll definitely go out and indulge, but not on a weekly basis.
And but on that topic, how you approach nutrition, like what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is like, you go down a whole rabbit hole with this too. I think nutrition can be, it can be very nuanced and it can be very mental for people as well. So again, like you get a lot of type A people who come into Hyrox or sport who want to like track everything, right? Every macro, every calorie. For me, like that's just too much. It's too overwhelming to do that. So I pay attention to it. I like to, eat relatively clean. I'd say I definitely do indulge from time to time as well, but it's more just like being sensible and not feeling like I have to stick to some exact macro plan or something like this. I never really count calories. I just kind of like, some days I eat a lot, some days I don't, but that takes time as well. Kind of learn.
Whether your metrics like go to work.
Well, I'm really lucky because in Bangkok, I work with like a meal delivery service called Sati. So they give me free food almost every day, which is awesome.
childish at eat.
Salty, yeah, they're amazing. So like that's actually really helped me because before, it was definitely maybe a little bit too much into like the 7-Eleven kind of food in Thailand, which is very cheap and delicious, but not necessarily the healthiest. So yeah, this is like a lot of, yeah, I mean, it's like, fresh meats, vegetable, yeah, a mix of stuff, right? Every day it's a little bit different, but that's sort of like a staple. I like to make a lot of smoothies as well. So that's something I'll make probably a couple times a week at home, or I'll order from someplace. Coconuts, I love like coconut smoothies, coconut water.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere in Thailand. It's easy. So yeah.
So, in terms of the single and doubles, is there any difference with West Coast? Are you more comfortable with single or like what's your?
It is a different race for sure. Doubles is, I mean, if you're racing doubles properly, it's going to be more intense early on because you can push a little bit harder out the running. You have somebody to share the stations with, so you're able to run that much faster every kilometer. So I think actually doubles is more painful in a lot of ways, which is crazy saying it because I think most people think like, a single pro race or open race is like the hardest thing ever. My most painful experiences have come from double races though. So my partner and I, earlier this year, we were kind of on a mission to set the world record not in the pro doubles, but in the open doubles.
Yeah.
We got really, really close. I think we missed it by like 20 or 30 seconds, but that was the most painful race I've ever run by far. Just how fast we had to run every kilometer and how tired we were coming into every station. So it requires you to be a bit better of a runner, I think.
Yeah.
But like they're different races. Probably down the line for me, double suits me a little bit better because I've always struggled a bit more on the strength side. So usually one of the sleds gives me a little bit of trouble in the pro race. I haven't quite gotten it all together in one single race. So the doubles, again, it allows you to share the work mode there.
Cool. So what's next for you? Racing, coaching.
Yeah, I think, like we're in a really interesting time because Hyrox is sort of in this, it's not in its infancy anymore. It's really taken off. It's become this global, not even a trend. It's like really here to stay, I think. So I'm really excited for it. I'm excited to keep building my coaching practice. And there's a couple different ways that might change over the next couple months. So weighing the pros and cons of some different options there. But just continuing to work with people and get more people involved in the sport is a big thing.
Yeah.
And then, personally, keep trying to chase the Elite 15, just get the most out of my body that I can. I'll be racing in China in a couple weeks, and then I'll go back to the US for the last chance qualifier race as well. Probably another couple pro doubles as well. Yeah. Potentially with Hongbo Sok, we talked a little bit as well. So maybe in Bangkok for another race, we'll try again to run a faster time.
Having someone that have gone through many different kinds of stocks, what would you say that makes you believe the Hyrox is here to stay? Like, are there any elements or things that you think is gonna be here for a long time?
I think there's a number of reasons. So I think obviously it's very accessible for people. Yes, it's the requirement to do these movements is not that high, right? So there's not a lot of like technical aspects to pushing or pulling a sled. Yes, it does take some practice, but I think overall, like the movements are very friendly for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And just the whole community, like they've done such a good job of gamifying it, creating like a really fun atmosphere for people to compete in. And like they take care of everyone. So whether you're stepping in and you're going to run your very first race, or you've done like 20 or 30 races like I have, like I think everyone gets an amazing experience out of it as well. So, and it's just fun to see how you compare to everyone too. So there's so much data in Hyrox. It's a very data-driven sport. You can see your exact split times across the board. You can compare it to any athlete in the world. So I think people love it for this reason, because unlike my background in obstacles course racing, that was very hard to compare. All these courses are different and the only thing you really know is your place. But this gives you like times and, you could come away, you can have like a bad race. Maybe I'll run a few minutes slower, but I can look into the data and say, hey, actually I did pretty well at sled pull today. Or hey, maybe I really got to work on the wall balls at the end. So it always gives you something to train for. And just like that sense that, there's always room for improvement.
You think anyone can get below 30 minutes?
30. I don't think 30. I think, So the world record for the men is 53 now this year. I do think eventually we'll get down to like close to a 50-minute race. I think it's very possible. Probably not in the next year or two, but as we get more younger guys coming into the sport, especially, I think we'll see that, people who specialize from a younger age, it could definitely be possible. And I think like doubles and team relays, these are going to continue to get faster and faster as well. So we'll see where it evolves. But my prediction is, we'll see a couple more world records broken in the next, 8 to 12 months and beyond. Yeah.
Do you think it could be you?
Look, I mean, probably not for a single race, but maybe with the right partner and teammates, it could happen. So, I mean, we just set the 8-pack record in the double or in the team relay last night. So that was a really big accomplishment. And yeah, we'll see.
Wow. No pressure. If someone wants to break, 1 hour simply just improve the Hyrox in 2025.
Yep.
What's the one thing you think they should stop doing tomorrow?
Yeah, I would say, so the goal is like sub 60 for someone, right?
Yeah.
I'd say the first thing to do is to start doing some research. Like look on Hyrox, look on these different websites, and just like poke around, look at race results, and look at the different splits and see what the demands are to do that. Because there are a lot of people who just say, hey, I want to run a sub 70 or sub 60, but they don't really know the context of what that means. And I really encourage people, like, all the data information is free. It's out there. So if that's really your goal, look to see what the requirements are to do that. What pace do you have to run? How fast do you have to push this sled? How fast do you have to lunge? Like, because again, like that's gonna take a lot of time to get your body conditioned to do all that stuff. And the better that you start to kind of know your strengths and weaknesses as an athlete, it's going to help you refine your training to get to that goal.
That's very insightful. It's funny, like, because the background is my partner dropped out last minute because of injury.
Yeah.
I ended up doing the double series open. No, they like just let him do it. No, but there's no, it won't be right.
Wait, yesterday that happened?
Yeah,
You had doubles by yourself.
I had what is double the trial itself. But they just didn't let me drink the result. That's it.
So you did like a whole.
Yeah, I didn't do the whole thing myself.
What was your time?
1:30. But I had to like stand at the drop zone for like 1 minute. Or beach stations to wait for the judge to come. And they help them. It's out of, so they don't always order volunteers.
Wild. That's hilarious.
And then I would do half the way, and then every church at the east side will ask you, where's your partner?
Oh my God.
I'm so tired, and I'm like, wait, there's such thing in a soft world.
That is so, I've never heard of that before. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, because my kind of told me like an hour before. I was like, okay, how do we sort this out?
Oh, and you couldn't do, because you couldn't do Meds Open because it was the day before.
Yeah, it was there.
Oh, yeah, I see. Yeah.
And then I start going on Reddit and online. It's up, I told it as try go there. This body like you don't like that new drawing, but like you studying the account, but
Yeah. And
that's all right. And so like I no, but my partner did the same role and he was injured.
wow.
So the day before, so like, I just say like, yeah, what I don't mind not being right. Just let me do it alone.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like, okay, fine. The director still let me do it.
It's crazy.
But that was fun. What was the pacing strategy that you guys discussed before the race? How did that happen?
So I think like it's a huge advantage if you can train with your partner before for a number of reasons. I've raced with a guy named Callum Behan many times, and for us as doubles partners, we know each other very well. So we know exactly sort of when one guy's struggling a bit.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like it's communication without talking to each other, right? We know each other. So that helps massively. And I feel like in this past weekend racing with Hong Bong Sok, this was our first time teaming up. And like I said earlier, a bit of a language barrier. I knew that he was going to struggle a bit more on the runs compared to me. So basically what I had to do was, try to pace him on the running. And then I would have to wait at the in arch for him to run for us to go in together. So it was a little bit of give and take and just kind of figuring out what the strengths or weaknesses are. as for the stations too, we had a strategy, but I could see early on that I would need to take a little bit more of the stations than we had planned. So it was just kind of like adjusting it on the fly and just kind of seeing what his body language was. I could tell like he was struggling. He was pretty fatigued. So I had to do a little bit more work early on. And then he also knew that I had a knee injury. So he was going to have to do more lunges, maybe a few more golf balls at the end. So we did talk a little bit before, which was helpful, but I think we would do so much better if we just had a few training sessions together too.
So you talk about your injuries. So how did that happen and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, so I raced in Shanghai last weekend. I did men's pro and a relay there. And just in the days following, I noticed I must have like cut my knee or I had some like scratch on it and it became very infected and swollen. So on Wednesday, I went to see a doctor in Bangkok and he treated it. He gave me antibiotics and just said, if I were you, I wouldn't race, but I can't stop you. So I told him there's no way I can't do this race. I have to go do it. So he gave me some tips for it. Basically just said, if you can try not to do lunges, basically don't put any pressure on it. So I told Unbox Stock this and he understood that, it might cause me some issues, but like the other thing is once you start the race, at least for me, I'm a very competitive person and there's so much adrenaline going on that it kind of shuts off, some of those pain signals as well. So I was able to push through it. Again, I'm not recommending that for people either. Like if you have a serious injury, shut it down. Don't push through it because you can massively screw up your whole season if you do that as well. So listen to your doctor. don't do what I did. But sometimes, you have to make an exception as well.
So you're gonna go to race the Shenzhen in the 3 weeks?
Yeah, Shenzhen, and for 3 weeks. Yeah, I think it'll be fine because this was like a surface level, not a very serious problem. If it's something more serious, like the beginning of a stress fracture or like an actual like tendon or ligament injury, then I wouldn't be doing it. Then I would listen. I would shut my body down and take time to rehab and stuff. Because I've made that mistake as well. Going back to college, I ran through a stress fracture and it completely ruined my body. So you got to be very careful. Like anything else, catch the warning signs early on. Definitely, like I think everyone needs to be working with a physio or some sort of like person who can kind of oversee your body and help you out with these things, because that is part of training. It's just like keeping this being that we're in healthy and able to do the work that we want to do.
Especially if you're competing at such a high level capacity, like
100%. It's so hard on the body. Yeah, it's so hard on the body.
do you have a schedule, like which race you would take it as practice and which race you were like, this is my goals,
Yeah, I do. I plan that out pretty carefully. So I kind of like this year, 2025 has been absolutely crazy. I don't even know how many races I've done, maybe 15 or something. It's all around the world. But
There's that almost every 2 weeks. So
yeah, and then not quite that much, but I was doing a lot earlier in the beginning of the year. And like, I was very careful though to plan out like which races, are more not practice runs, but like what is the A race? What am I really building towards here versus what are races that I'm going to practice a little bit of a different strategy in. So yeah, there are some races I did where the whole goal was just to go out extremely hard and see how my body handled it, versus other races. The past weekend in Shanghai was the exact opposite, be a bit more conservative early on, try to really push at the end, because then you learn, what's going to work the best for you, what's sort of like the optimal pacing strategy.
So how do you get to know him at Race UP?
Yeah, so we raced each other in men's pro back in April in Taipei, and I won that race. He finished second to me, and we just started chatting on Instagram after that. So he'd say congratulations if I raced, I'd say congratulations if he raced, and then we were put into a group chat about potentially doing a relay in Singapore together. So in that group chat, I then reached out to him again and said, hey, if you're interested, maybe we could do a doubles race together. And he immediately said yes. I was pretty surprised. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. Maybe we could do a couple in the future together. So this was our first one. And like I said, we're probably planning to do another one early next year as well. So he's a, he is a celebrity. He has a huge fan club, but he's also just like a very nice, humble, normal guy. He works really hard. And I think it's really inspiring because I think he's almost 40 years old. He's not a young guy by any means. So he's still racing at a very high level for that age. And I think that's very inspiring for a lot of athletes in their 30s to hear that, you can really push the limits well into your 30s. It's not like you peak early and then it's all downhill from there.
What were these best stations and make you?
So I think we actually do complement each other quite well because I think he's very good at like lunges and wall balls at the end. And that's where I was struggling, particularly this weekend. So that really did help. Again, I think early on, we got to probably get his running a little bit better so we can run a little bit faster.
Yeah.
But that'll just take a little bit more time. And I think he knows that in his own training as well.
I will connect you with Hyrox.
Yeah.
You guys should race one together.
Yeah, it would actually be cool. Like, yeah, because I didn't even, just the way that the race climbings were this weekend, I didn't even like see him. Like, I think he was racing when I wasn't there and I was racing when he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he'd be really fun to race with. I think he's really good at
You
stuff.
guys are competitive.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. Both of us are super competitive. Yeah.
Yeah. But once you're ready in December, I'll pick you up.
Sweet.
Maybe we'll try with my two clients, but
Yeah, it'd be cool. So that'd be interesting.
the part happens we calling first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, Gabe. That was really insightful.
Thank you.
For your journey, because your most recent race tonight, how you approach your training, nutrition, and so for the audience, how would they find out more about you? And even last piece of advice so anyone can inspire to do Hyrox.
Yeah, I would just say, like, to anyone listening or watching, you're never going to feel fully ready. So I always encourage people sign up before. Like, if there's a bit of hesitation, that's actually a good sign because no one feels fully ready. I never feel fully ready. There's always something I'm worried about, I'm anxious about going into these races. But like the minute you cross the finish line, it's the best feeling in the world. And I want more people to experience that sense of accomplishment and feeling like you've just put your body through something and you've come out the other end and you've made it. You've done this incredible journey. So that's my message to people. If you want to connect with me or learn more about me, you can follow me on Instagram at Gabe Heck. I have a website, heckhybridfitness.com. So please reach out to me there. And I'd love to talk more with people. Yeah.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thanks, man. Really good to talk.
See you guys in the next episode.